Welcome to Ancient Relics Keeper, where lost truths, ancient mysteries, and forbidden history collide. Let's question the past and uncover what was never meant to be found. On the Swedish island of Öland, the ruins of a ring fort hold a dark secret. Inside, archaeologists found the remains of a violent massacre from 1,500 years ago. The victims were left where they fell, and no one ever returned. On the southeastern coast of the Swedish island of Öland, a long narrow strip of land in the Baltic Sea, lies a site that has, in recent years, become one of the most compelling and chilling mysteries in European archaeology. This is Sandbyborg, a name that now evokes a sense of profound unease and a story of unimaginable violence. From the surface, the site appears as a gentle grassy mound, a subtle oval-shaped rise in the flat coastal landscape, just a stone's throw from the sea. For centuries, it was just another of the 19 known ancient ring forts that dot the island of Öland, a testament to a turbulent and long-forgotten past. But beneath this tranquil, unassuming surface, a dark and terrible secret lay hidden for over 1,500 years. Beginning in 2010, archaeological excavations at Sandbyborg have peeled back this layer of earth and time to reveal not just the ruins of a fort, but a pristine and horrifying crime scene, the remains of a brutal and indiscriminate massacre, a moment of extreme violence that was frozen in time, leaving a community of people dead in their homes, their bodies left exactly where they fell, a silent, haunting tableau that has been sealed away since the 5th century AD. The initial discovery of the site's grim secret was almost accidental. While the existence of the Sandbyborg ring fort was well known, it had never been professionally excavated. In 2010, archaeologists were conducting a preliminary geophysical survey of the site when they discovered what appeared to be caches of valuable artifacts that had been looted from the site by treasure hunters. This prompted a small-scale, exploratory excavation to assess the damage and to see what, if anything, remained of the fort's interior. As the archaeologists began to carefully remove the topsoil from within one of the house structures inside the fort's stone walls, they made a shocking and immediate discovery. They found human bones. Crucially, these were not the carefully interred remains of a formal burial. They were the disarticulated and scattered skeletons of individuals who had clearly met a violent end, their bones lying amidst the collapsed rubble of the house and the mundane objects of daily life. This was not a cemetery. It was a scene of death. This initial stunning discovery launched a full-scale, multi-year excavation project that has slowly and meticulously uncovered the full, horrifying extent of the tragedy. Sandbyborg is now recognized as a unique site in archaeology, a place that is not a typical settlement, but a snapshot of a single, horrific event that brought the life of the fort to a sudden and violent end. The evidence paints a picture of a normal domestic scene that was brutally and instantaneously interrupted. Inside one of the excavated houses, archaeologists found the remains of a cooking hearth. Lying in the fireplace among the charcoal and ash was the half-eaten body of a small herring, the last meal of a person who was killed in the very act of eating it. This single, poignant find speaks volumes about the suddenness of the attack. Life at Sandbyborg did not wind down. It was extinguished in a moment. The most powerful evidence for this frozen moment comes from the positions of the human remains themselves. The victims were found exactly where they fell. Their bodies never moved, never buried, never given the proper funeral rites that were so profoundly important in Iron Age Scandinavian culture. They were simply left to decay within the collapsing ruins of their own homes. The distribution of the bodies tells a chilling story of the massacre as it unfolded. In one house, the skeleton of an elderly man was found. He had clearly been struck down from behind with immense force, his skull crushed, and he had fallen face-first into the glowing embers of the central hearth. In another house, the remains of two men, one older and one younger, were found lying side by side, suggesting a father and son or two brothers cut down together. In the doorway of another house, a young man was found, his body contorted, as if he had been killed while trying to flee. The victims are not just skeletons. They are the silent protagonists in the final, terrifying moments of their lives. This was not a battle between two armies of warriors. It was a brutal and indiscriminate massacre of an entire community. The skeletal remains include individuals of all ages. The bones of young children and even infants have been found, alongside those of adolescents, adult men, and the elderly. Every person who was inside the fort on that fateful day, regardless of their age or their ability to fight, was seemingly cut down. The violence was personal, intimate, and extreme. The field of forensic osteology, study of human bones, has provided a gruesome and detailed catalog of the injuries sustained by the victims. Many of the skulls show clear evidence of massive blunt force trauma, consistent with being struck by a heavy object like a club or the back of an axe. Others have the clean, sharp-edged wounds of swords or the devastating V-shaped cuts of battle axes. The evidence points to a well-armed and merciless group of attackers who moved from house to house, systematically killing every inhabitant they could find. Adding to the mystery is the fact that all of the 26 individuals discovered so far are male. While it is possible that the female inhabitants were taken captive by the attackers, a common practice in Iron Age warfare, the complete absence of female remains is striking and has led to a number of theories. Perhaps the women and some of the children were in a different location when the attack occurred, or perhaps the massacre was a highly specific and targeted event, a retribution aimed only at the men of a particular clan or family. Whatever the reason, the demographic profile of the victims only deepens the mystery of who was targeted and why. The picture that emerges from the archaeological evidence at Sandbyborg is a profoundly disturbing one. It is a Pompeii of violence, a place where a moment of human atrocity has been preserved with a chilling and unprecedented clarity. The attack was sudden, catching the inhabitants completely off guard in the middle of their daily routines. It was overwhelming, with the small community being quickly and brutally dispatched by their assailants. And it was indiscriminate, with men, children, and the elderly all being put to the sword. The sight is a rare and terrifying window into the brutal reality of life and death in the Scandinavian Iron Age, a time of great upheaval and violence. The silent, scattered bones of the victims, left unburied in their homes for 1,500 years, are a powerful and haunting testament to the final terrible day in the life of the fort of Sandbyborg. They are a silent chorus, posing a series of profound and deeply unsettling questions to the archaeologists who have finally unearthed their tragic, unfinished story. The archaeological evidence from Sandbyborg paints a chillingly clear picture of a brutal and sudden massacre. The site is a frozen moment of violence, a snapshot of a community annihilated in the midst of their daily lives. However, the true and enduring mystery of Sandbyborg lies not just in the violence of the event itself, but in what happened, or rather, what didn't happen in the immediate aftermath. The actions or inactions of both the attackers and the surviving local population in the days and years following the massacre are so strange, so contrary to all known cultural norms of the Scandinavian Iron Age, that they transform the site from a simple, albeit tragic, crime scene into a profound and deeply perplexing historical enigma. It is this bizarre aftermath, the complete lack of burial for the dead, the inexplicable absence of plundering, and the long-term deliberate avoidance of the site, that elevates the Sandbyborg mystery to another level, suggesting that the motive for the attack was something far more complex and perhaps far darker than a simple act of warfare. The first and most profound of these anomalies is the complete lack of any proper burial for the victims. In the pre-Christian world of 5th century Scandinavia, as in most ancient societies, the rituals surrounding death and burial were of supreme and central importance. Funerary rites were not just a way of disposing of a corpse. They were a sacred duty, a crucial and non-negotiable part of the social and religious fabric. The proper burial of the dead was seen as essential for the well-being of both the deceased spirit and the surviving community. It was believed that an unburied soul could not find its way to the afterlife and would be doomed to wander the earth as a malevolent ghost, a dangerous and restless spirit that could bring misfortune and terror to the living. The proper burial of one's kin was, therefore, one of the most fundamental obligations of any individual, family, or clan. Even enemies killed in battle were often afforded some form of burial, if only to appease their spirits and to prevent them from returning to haunt the victors. The scene at Sandbyborg is a shocking and complete violation of this deeply ingrained cultural norm. The 26 individuals discovered so far were not buried at all. They were simply left where they fell, inside their own homes, to be consumed by the slow processes of natural decay. Their bodies were not collected, they were not laid to rest in a grave or a barrow, and they were not cremated on a pyre. They were abandoned. This is a profound and deeply strange anomaly. It is almost unthinkable that the family members, allies, or neighbors of the victims would not have returned to the fort to perform this most sacred of duties. The complete absence of any attempt to bury the dead suggests something extraordinary. It implies that either there was no one left who was willing or able to perform the burials, or that there was a powerful and overriding reason that prevented them from doing so. This failure to bury the dead is not just a detail. It is a central clue, a sign that the events at Sandbyborg had somehow broken the normal rules of society. The second major puzzle of the aftermath is the inexplicable fact that the site was not plundered. The archaeological evidence has revealed that the inhabitants of Sandbyborg were a wealthy and well-connected community. Lying scattered amongst the skeletal remains of the victims, archaeologists have found a treasure trove of high-status, luxury artifacts. These include beautiful ornate brooches made of gilded silver and decorated with intricate animal motifs, a classic example of high-status Scandinavian jewelry from the migration period. They have also found delicate, multicolored glass beads, which were valuable imported items, likely from the Black Sea region or the Mediterranean. Most spectacularly, they have unearthed a number of Roman gold coins or solidi. These coins were not used as currency in Scandinavia. They were pure bullion, symbols of immense wealth and prestige, often given as diplomatic gifts by the late Roman Empire to allied barbarian chieftains, or brought back by mercenaries who had served in the Roman armies. The discovery of 5 of these gold coins, one of which was minted in the name of the Western Roman Emperor Valentinian III, is a clear indicator that the leaders of Sandbyborg were part of an elite, well-traveled, and powerful social stratum. This makes the actions of the attackers utterly baffling. The typical motive for a raid in the Iron Age, or indeed in any period of history, is profit. Attackers would have systematically looted the settlement, killing the inhabitants and taking anything of value: the jewelry, the coins, the weapons, and even the livestock. Yet at Sandbyborg this did not happen. The attackers, after carrying out a brutal and thorough massacre, simply walked away, leaving this glittering array of gold, silver, and other valuables lying untouched amongst the corpses. The half-eaten herring in the hearth suggests that they did not even stop to eat. This was clearly not a raid for plunder. The motive was not economic. The goal of the attack was not to enrich the assailants, but simply to annihilate the inhabitants. The decision to leave the treasure behind is a powerful and deliberate statement. It suggests that the attackers' primary goal was the complete and total erasure of the people of the fort, and that the material wealth they possessed was of secondary, or even no importance. This act of leaving the valuables behind is a deeply strange and culturally significant clue, pointing towards a motive that was rooted not in greed, but perhaps in politics, in revenge, or in a form of ritualistic violence that we do not yet fully understand. The third and final piece of the puzzle of the aftermath is the long-term fate of the fort itself. After the massacre, the ring fort of Sandbyborg was never resettled. This in itself is not entirely unusual, as a site of such violence might be considered unlucky. However, the evidence suggests something more than simple avoidance. It suggests that the site became a place of active and profound taboo. The gates of the fort were closed, the houses, with their gruesome contents, were left to collapse slowly, and the entire site seems to have been deliberately and completely shunned by the local population for the next 1,500 years. There is no evidence of any later activity at the site, no signs of squatters, and with the exception of the modern looters, no evidence of anyone even daring to enter the walls to retrieve the valuable items that were known to be inside. The memory of the horrific event that had occurred there seems to have transformed Sandbyborg into a haunted and forbidden place. It became, in the collective memory of the local people, a place of death and supernatural danger, a place to be avoided at all costs. This would explain the first two anomalies. If the site was immediately declared taboo, a place of such profound spiritual contamination that it was dangerous to even approach, then no one would have dared to enter to bury the dead. And no one would have dared to enter to retrieve the cursed treasure. The fear of the unburied, vengeful ghosts of the victims, and perhaps of the malevolent spirits that had caused the massacre, would have been stronger than both the sacred duty to bury one's kin and the powerful temptation of gold. The site was effectively sealed, not by a physical barrier, but by a wall of fear and superstition. The aftermath of the massacre, the unburied bodies, the untouched treasure, and the long-term abandonment all point to a single coherent conclusion. The event at Sandbyborg was so horrific and so culturally transgressive that it created a powerful and enduring taboo, a memory of terror that was passed down through generations and that effectively froze the site in time, preserving its dark secret until the day that archaeologists finally broke the seal. The chilling and bizarre aftermath of the Sandbyborg massacre, the unburied bodies, the untouched treasure, and the long-term taboo-driven abandonment of the site presents a profound and deeply unsettling puzzle. With the motives of simple plunder or random violence seemingly ruled out, the investigation into this 1,500-year-old cold case must turn to the broader historical and political context of the time. The central and most pressing question is, who were the killers, and what could possibly have motivated such a brutal, systematic, and seemingly ritualistic act of annihilation? While the archaeological record can provide no definitive names, by examining the turbulent world of 5th-century Scandinavia, a time of great upheaval and shifting power, we can begin to formulate a series of plausible hypotheses that attempt to explain the dark and complex human drama that lies at the heart of the Sandbyborg mystery. The massacre at Sandbyborg occurred in the late 5th century AD, a period of history known as the Migration Period. This was a chaotic and transformative era in European history, defined by the slow and violent collapse of the Western Roman Empire and the subsequent mass movements of various Germanic and other peoples across the continent. While Scandinavia was on the periphery of the Roman world, it was by no means isolated from these great historical currents. The island of Åland, with its strategic location in the Baltic Sea, was a wealthy and important hub in the network of trade and communication that connected Scandinavia to the Roman and post-Roman world to the south. The discovery of Roman gold coins and other luxury goods at Sandbyborg is a clear testament to this connection. The inhabitants of the fort were not isolated farmers. They were part of an elite, well-traveled, and likely powerful group of people who were actively engaged in the turbulent politics and power struggles of their time. This was an age of warrior chieftains, shifting alliances, and brutal competition for resources, prestige, and political control. It is within this violent and unstable world that the motive for the massacre must be sought. The most straightforward and perhaps most likely theory is that the attack on Sandbyborg was the result of a local or regional power struggle. The 19 ring forts on the island of Åland suggest a landscape that was politically fragmented, with a number of competing local chieftains or clans, each with their own fortified stronghold. The inhabitants of Sandbyborg, with their demonstrable wealth and international connections, were likely a powerful and influential family or clan. Their very success may have made them a target. The attack could have been carried out by a rival chieftain, either from another part of Åland or from the nearby Swedish mainland, who saw the Sandbyborg clan as a threat to his own ambitions. In this scenario, the goal of the attack would not have been to acquire the fort's material wealth, but to achieve a far more decisive and brutal objective: the complete and total elimination of a rival lineage. In the ruthless politics of the Iron Age, a powerful family could not be defeated by simply killing its warriors in battle. As long as the women and children survived, the lineage would continue, and with it, the potential for future revenge and a challenge to the new ruler's authority. The only way to definitively seize power was through the complete and systematic extermination of the entire rival clan. This would explain the indiscriminate nature of the massacre, with children and the elderly being killed alongside the adult men. It was an act of political genocide, designed to erase a rival power from the map completely. The decision to leave the valuable treasure behind would have been a powerful and chilling statement of intent. A second, and perhaps even darker, possibility is that the attack was not carried out by external enemies, but was the result of a betrayal from within. This theory is supported by a crucial and tantalizing piece of archaeological evidence. The gates of the fort show no signs of having been forced. There is no evidence of a siege, no signs of battering rams or attempts to burn down the gates. This strongly suggests that the attackers did not have to fight their way into the fort. They were either let in willingly by someone inside, or they were already inside when the attack began. This raises the chilling possibility that the massacre was a Red Wedding-style event, an act of treachery carried out by supposed allies during a time of peace and celebration. The inhabitants of the fort may have been hosting a feast or a religious ceremony, with their guard down, when their guests suddenly turned on them. The half-eaten herring found in the hearth could be a remnant of this final fatal feast. This scenario would explain the sudden and overwhelming nature of the attack, as the inhabitants would have been caught completely by surprise, with no time to arm themselves or to mount an organized defense. The attackers could have been a rival faction from within the Sambieborg community itself, a group that had decided to seize power through a bloody internal coup. Or they could have been allies from another fort, who used the pretense of a friendly visit to carry out their treacherous plan. This theory of betrayal adds a layer of Shakespearean tragedy to the event, suggesting a story of broken oaths and intimate violence. Finally, some researchers have proposed that the motive for the massacre may have been connected to the very thing that made the Sambieborg elite so powerful: their connection to the collapsing Roman world. The Roman gold coins found at the site are a clear link to the south. It is highly likely that some of the men of Sambieborg had served as mercenaries, or foederati, in the late Roman armies, and had returned home with their pay and a great deal of prestige. It is possible that they were involved in the complex and violent politics of the final days of the empire. They may have been on the losing side of a major conflict on the continent, and the massacre at Sambieborg could have been the final bloody act of that conflict, a long-range hit carried out by the victorious faction to eliminate a potential future threat. Alternatively, the men of Sambieborg may have returned with their gold, but in doing so, they may have betrayed their former comrades, and the massacre was a brutal act of revenge. This theory is more speculative, but it would account for the seemingly non-local and extremely ruthless nature of the attack. Ultimately, without any written records or a definitive smoking gun, the true identity and motive of the killers of Sambieborg are likely to remain lost to history. The archaeological evidence can paint a vivid and horrifying picture of what happened on that day, but the human motivations behind the violence remain in the realm of educated speculation. Whether it was a ruthless political purge, a shocking act of betrayal, or the final echo of a distant Roman power struggle, the result was the same: the complete and utter annihilation of a community. The silent, unburied skeletons of Sambieborg are a powerful and haunting testament to this brutal event. A 1,500-year-old cold case that continues to challenge and disturb us. A tragic, unfinished story whose final violent chapter we may never be able to fully read. Sambieborg remains a cold case, a brutal crime scene frozen for 1,500 years. The identities of the killers and their motive may be lost to history, leaving only the silent skeletons to tell their tragic, unfinished story. Thanks for exploring with Ancient Relics Keeper. Stay curious, question everything, and remember the truth is often buried deeper than we think.